44-year-old Phillip Rivers nearly upsets the Seahawks in Seattle. And everything we saw from 13 other games, that's what we're going to talk about today on Stealing Bananas. I'm Ben Gretch. You can find the Stealing Signals newsletter at bengretch.substack.com. With me, as always, is Shawn Siegele. You can find all his great work over at RotoViz. It is week 15. It is the first week of the fantasy football playoffs. There were 14 games today. Shawn, just one Thursday night game, one Monday night game, no international game, no second Monday night game, no buys. We had, 8 in the early window, 5 in the late window, a Sunday night football game. I, because of things going on, didn't get to see Thursday night football and didn't watch it on Friday or Saturday either because of some different things going on. And I watched that. I just told you I watched that this morning at the very beginning of the day, and then I watched all 14 of the other games. I don't think I've ever watched 15 NFL games in one day. It would have to be like a Week 18, but I don't actually watch all of the Week 18 games because why would you subject yourself to that? I don't think I've ever had you have to have a no-bye week with none of that other stuff to watch that many games in a day.
Do you remember anything that happened in them?
No, I don't know anything at all. This is going to be fun. Bo Nix was awesome. He was tremendous today.
There were a ton of great performances. You work through all the games, you get very excited, you look at the scores. When you have the bad beat in your best ball leagues this week, obviously that wears on you a bit. When you see how far behind you are, the team that scored 261 points in the main event today, and congratulations to them. But basically, Ben, there was a lot of fantastic football in week 15. I think this was you were saying a couple of the last times we got on the show that, it had been good football. And I was like, was it good football? I mean, there were obviously some pieces. Today was fantastic for a lot of players. I was kind of bummed out that I finished with Saints Panthers. There wasn't much good in that. Jalen Coker scores a nice touchdown. The rest of this week, and I haven't watched the Jets either. I'm under the impression that they are not good, Ben.
You haven't watched the Jets-Jaguars game yet?
I haven't watched a game in which evidently Trevor Lawrence, who can't hit the broadside of the barn with a pass, scored like 50
he hit the broadside of the barn. Usually you have somebody check the scores, and I think your sister, right, and kind of relay like, this looks like some things happened. You didn't tell me you hadn't watched that one. I would have told you there were some points scored in that game.
Watch that one instead. The Jets, I mean, I feel bad for Aaron Glenn because I think Aaron Glenn is cool, and I think he may do a good job with this. But the Jets are not an NFL football team at this point. But let's talk about some of the teams that are NFL football teams. As you said, Bo Nix looked sensational today against the Green Bay Packers. This is a game that had a sad one where obviously Micah Parsons gets hurt. Christian Watson, who had been playing some very good football, has a couple of consecutive really deep targets. And the second one, an amazing play by Patrick Surtain to get a pick and then land on him and knock him out of the game. Christian Watson has had some of the worst injury luck of any player in the last 2 or 3 decades. And for him to be hot and get injured again was a bummer. Otherwise, this was a fantastic football game. Then I criticize the Packers all the time for how they use Josh Jacobs, criticize Josh Jacobs for being just a guy, and that's more or less the case. He had the best catch of the day today out of the backfield. Yeah. I mean, Josh Jacobs was really good.
He did. He had a 40-yard touchdown run, too. We get to see the running back air yards a lot around the league today. He got a little wheel route and incredible catch to catch it basically through the arm of the defender. And then right as the defender tries to sort of break free, because whenever you see the receiver catch the ball around an arm and the ball is separated from their body, that arm is always going to try to rip the ball out. Right as they went to rip it out, he moved it. He moved the ball really quickly and swiftly into one arm as he was going to the ground. And I was like, is that going to come out? Is he going to survive the ground? But he tucked it really, really.
I mean, this is a catch where the defender's arm was in between the whole time. And the whole time you're expecting the defender to rip the ball free because his arm's got to come through there. And you just can't hold the ball in that situation. But at a certain point, you're like, okay, now Jacobs has done 3 steps and moved the ball around. Like, this is just it. The play's over, and he's won, and it's going to be a touchdown. He has a nice sprint for a touchdown later in this game. This is the best game that I've seen Josh Jacobs play. It actually wasn't a very high volume game, only has the 12 carries, but when you have a 40-yard touchdown run and a highlight catch, I mean, he kept the team in it when otherwise the Denver Broncos dominated this game. Broncos looking toward the AFC number 1 seed here. And it was interesting too, because RJ Harvey ran really hard, looked good. He scores a touchdown again, even though otherwise not very efficient. Cortland Sutton, another big game, catches a long pass, catches a bunch of passes. You have, with Pat Bryant out, Troy Franklin sort of wandering into more volume again. Then Troy Franklin cut all 6 of his passes today.
He looked good.
Like 3 catches on 11 targets, but for 60 yards and a touchdown. All 6 today. He looked very, very good.
The TD was a really well thrown ball into traffic from the seam. Shawn, I didn't see the Micah Parsons injury. What happened there? Is it serious?
He's believed to have torn his ACL. That happened somewhat late when he is rushing the passer there. So that's a huge bummer for them. The Packers looked like the best team in football coming into this game. The last couple of weeks, they've thrown the ball better. You get Watson healthy. They've got the great defense. They've got the good balance. Jordan Love putting up great numbers. And Jordan Love threw some fantastic passes in this game, even though the final line ends up not being particularly impressive. This was, again, a fun one. You have Denver at home. This is a battle of the heavyweights. The Denver defense did look good. And this is a game where Bo Nix finally did what we had been looking for throughout big chunks of the season, right? I mean, this defense has carried them. He's played well in the fourth quarter. They've won a lot of close games. This team that they showed today is a potential Super Bowl champion. They didn't ask him to throw many passes out of the pocket at all. He doesn't really thrive there, but you get him out on the edge and he throws dart after dart after dart. And I mean, 0 sacks, right? You can't get him down when you let him roll out. I mean, they still don't have fantastic receivers. You had the one fantastic catch from Evan Ingram, otherwise didn't do anything. They move Mims around with Pat Bryant out, get him into some space there. We've got some of the older sort of heritage type coaches in Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh, who, I mean, looked very good today, but especially Payton and the Broncos. This is the type of offense that we had been expecting. It now looks to me like the Denver Broncos are the AFC favorites, where I don't think you could have really said that a week ago, even though they were winning games.
Yeah, it's been a lot of close wins. I mean, I've said this a bunch, but their stretch where, Adam Schefter had the tweet a while back. They won 7 games in the span of however many days. They're the third team in NFL history to win 7 games in that many days. It started like on Monday night and went through like a Thursday night and in a 7-week span, and they won all 7, like whatever. It's just the way the schedule worked out. It's a very arbitrary endpoint story. But my point is, not only were they slightly condensed in that period, they also traveled to Germany or London or wherever. I think maybe they played in London. They traveled to Europe and then played back in the Mountain Time Zone the next week. And teams get the opportunity to have a bye after they travel to Europe. And especially if you're coming from the Mountain Time Zone, we have 4 time zones. You're in the second one furthest to the west. Like, this is not, an East Coast team just traveling over to London. They hosted a game the next Sunday in Denver instead of taking their bye week then, and they kept winning. And they were beating bad teams by close margins. They didn't look good when they beat the Raiders at home. They didn't look good in that London game or whatever game, wherever it was. I can't remember exactly where they played, but it was a European game. And I believe it was against the Jets, and they won like 13-11. I mean, they had some really ugly wins in that stretch, but they were all wins. They're what are they, 12-2 now? I mean, they've done nothing but win games. Now that they get the back end of this, and what Schefter's point was as he was tweeting it was that after that Thursday night, they would have 10 days till a Sunday game, and then they would have the next week off. And so they were going to have one game in their next 20 days or whatever, which is basically what they're just getting out of, and they've had time to self-scout and reassess on the back end of their season, go into this home stretch. And you said it. I think, you have a good coach like Sean Payton. He used that extra time wisely, and they looked a lot better at this point. Bo Nix looked way, way better. Nix is a guy that he's had a little bit of a down second season. He's had some tough games. Again, they've had a lot of tough travel circumstances and everything. There have been a lot of people on social and elsewhere, Sean. I know, you've always been a big Nix guy, and I think objectively been right. There's been a lot of people that were wrong about Nix last year because they were really out on him, or I assume were probably wrong on him, that have just been talking all year this year like it's clear that Bo Nix is terrible, like he can't play. And it doesn't always have to be that a guy's great or can't play. I'm not going to cape up to him for him too hard, but this is a long-term NFL starter you can win with. I mean, the idea that Bo Nix is not good in his second season and they're whatever they are, 12-2, and he can have games like this. He looked incredible today. The throw to Franklin was awesome. A dime to Sutton on the outside for a touchdown. Another later dime to Sutton on an over-the-shoulder throw on a 4th and 3 for a massive conversion in a 1-point game. I mean, he has an incredible game here in throwing vertically down the field against a really good defense. So kind of put the shut the haters up, I guess, on that one. Again, I'm not saying that Bo Nix is an MVP candidate. I do think he's very much a competent starter, one of the top 15 starters in the NFL.
And I also don't think that he was having an MVP season or anything close. But I would point out, and this is the second consecutive year that SIS has been bizarrely high on him. But Sports Info Solutions coming into this game, not after the game, coming into this game, had him leading the NFL in passing WAR. In part
that sounds wrong. Like that sounds like.
In part because his receivers have been the worst receivers in football, right? I had mentioned to you that, and we did have a JSN drop today, which obviously was very unusual, but that coming into the week, I think it was coming into the previous week, right? We had Denver Broncos with 33 drop passes and the Seattle Seahawks with 3. So that's a pretty meaningful gap in terms of what your receivers are doing for you. Yeah, I would also tell you that it's wrong. The funny thing is that Mahomes, Stafford, those are the guys in the next couple spots, in part because I assume schedule, and in part because Drake May has actually gotten sensational play on the other end of his passes. He's actually quite a bit down in that metric, which again, I would just say doesn't actually represent what we all feel like we've seen and what the actual numbers are in terms of like EPA. I mean, EPA, Drake May number 1, Matthew Stafford number 2, right? In some cases, I would say just those numbers are going to be better than what you get when you do a bunch of charting adjustments. But we do know teams are playing different schedules. We do know that they're getting different help on the back end of their passes. Not that the Patriots receivers played poorly today, but they didn't make some of the key plays that they've been making all year. And as a result, they end up blowing a 21-point lead.
Yeah, Patriots got out to the early lead in this one, had the ball first, scored on 3 of their first 4 drives. The Bills punted on each of their first 3, finally got their touchdown. On their 4th drive, Patriots got a field goal before half, had 5 first half drives, scored on 4 of them. The Bills only had 4 first half drives. The Bills did come out, score right after half and get a 3-and-out and then score again. And then, so it's a 21-point deficit in the first half that they overcome, but also one where they had fewer possessions early because the Patriots had ball first. And when they got ball first in the second half, they were able to, score on their first 2 possessions of the second half and sandwich those with a 3-and-out defensively. Finally got their first 3-and-out of the game and only their second punt of the game from the Patriots. And so, early in the second half, they were talking about it on the broadcast a lot, that this was a huge disparity in the first half and the Bills weren't doing anything offensively. I was kind of watching it from the perspective of, the possessions were always a little bit off. It was every time the Bills got the ball, they would throw up all these stats. I was like, yeah, because the Patriots have had an extra drive, right? Like the Patriots are doing better at this point, but they were talking about after, the Patriots had 3 drives, the Bills got their first down, and then they did have to punt, and the Patriots scored again. And then, they were saying it again. They're showing all the stats when the Bills got the ball back as the Bills started that next drive that was their first touchdown drive late in the first half. Josh Allen only has 3 completions in the game. And it's like, yeah, they've only had the ball 3 times, and they've punted 3 times. So these things happen sometimes in a game of possessions, but they were able to score on 3 straight drives and kind of flip that around halftime and get the Patriots to punt. Close game into the second half, and the Bills do wind up going away and winning it. They win the second half 28-7 in the end. Pretty fascinating game, I thought. I mean, both teams could have easily won it. Really back and forth late. Our guy Travion Henderson looked like he was going to win it with the long touchdown run, and you had Drake May getting way out in front for a lead block, a toss play that he reverses field, and Drake May runs all the way downfield. And if he doesn't run all the way downfield, that DB is probably going to be able to get the angle on Travion, but he's able to kind of escort Travion down the field to give him the lane to just run to the end zone for his second long touchdown run of the game. But Josh Allen was able to flip the script from there and score a touchdown coming back and win that game.
Yeah, the big playability from Henderson in this one, I mean, so exciting. Shows why we wanted to draft him. That didn't necessarily work out for the most part during the regular season. It'll be interesting to see where he goes next year and how all of this develops. He cuts off a route late where that play is probably not going to work regardless of what he does. But that is unfortunate. He does catch the 2 passes on top of it. But anytime that you can break multiple big plays in the game, we're talking about a guy who is in that mix with the Jonathan Taylors, with the Jahmyr Gibbs type backs. And that does give the Patriots a weapon going forward, especially when you consider sort of how their offense is built at this point. You mentioned the blocking there from May. One of the things that's been a little bit disappointing this season, in part because he hasn't needed it, is we haven't gotten the rushing production that was advertised as being a big part of his profile. He really struggles as a passer today, but has the 2 rushing touchdowns and shows the other part of it. So you get his rushing, you get Travion's rushing. The problem they had here, and the problem that they're probably going to take down the stretch as they compete for, again, that top seed, but also try and hold off the Bills. One of the things that is interesting here is that because of schedule on the AFC West side, it was still very possible that with a Chiefs victory, they could come back on the Chargers. At the same time, the Chargers are in a position where they could have potentially come back on the Broncos. Both the Chargers and the Broncos had a brutal finishing schedules. So if the Broncos had lost that game today, they then go and play the Jaguars. Jaguars obviously white hot. You then have the head-to-head between the Chargers and the Broncos. The Broncos have a game with the Chiefs as well. That looks very positive for them. On the other side of this now, the Bills pull within 1 game of the Patriots. And I don't think that you can look at 1 game, especially a game like this when you haven't been challenged a lot, and say that this sort of reveals all of the problems that the Patriots have. But I was telling you that when I built out all of the team rankings and went through and talked about the advanced stats for them, there were really like 5 or 6 things for the Patriots that showed up as being very large red flags. Now, losing a close game to the Bills doesn't mean that suddenly now you're, a fraud because the schedule had been easy, but the schedule had been easy, right? We know that's a part of it. You look at the situation here where Mac Hollins leads the way with 4 catches for 41 yards and on 8 targets. It's a problem if that's the way the offense is going to be designed. You have Keyshawn, who great at the catch point, doesn't get open, only draws the 1 target. It is a fantastic 30-yard catch. We're not seeing much from Stephon Diggs, who only draws the 4 targets in this game. I mean, Demario Douglas has been their biggest playmaker, nothing at all from him. Hunter Henry has been doing a lot of the tight end position, in part because he doesn't have other players on the team who are target hogs that would kind of keep him out of the equation. He only catches 1 of his 3 targets today and commits it wasn't an easy play, but when you consider the types of receptions that his guys have made for him all year long. Now, that's not to say that Drake May hasn't been the best passer in the NFL, because he has been, right? Even with the schedule and all these other things, he's been the best passer in the NFL. His guys have made catches on the other end. Hunter Henry does not make the catch on the 3rd and 12 toward the end of the game that would have potentially created a different dynamic in the last couple of minutes, having his guys not make the plays today that they've been making and also not really show an ability to get open. The 14 for 23, no touchdowns, 3 more sacks from May, throws the pick in this one. I think you would be a little bit disconcerted as a Patriots fan that, I mean, they're still a year or two away. They need to add weapons around May if they're going to be able to compete against the elite teams and the pass defenses like what Buffalo gives you, where it's a little bit more of a puzzle than what they faced in all of these easy contests.
Yeah, but I mean, from that perspective, I think you have to look at today as a pretty big positive, although just from the perspective that they were very much in the game and very easily could have won it. And as we were saying, we're up by a lot in the first half and with a more successful team early. If they do a little better in the second half in terms of sort of drive efficiency, they only score on 1 of their 5 drives in the second half. And that was the 65-yard touchdown run. It was a 1-play drive from Trevion. If they get anything else in the second half, I mean, they win this game, or they are in position to tie it and put it in overtime or what have you. They have a good showing from that perspective. They outgain the Bills. They're right there with them.
I mean, they outgain them in part, though, because Trevion gains 143 yards on 14 carries.
Yeah, no, that's a huge part of it for sure. But and so in some respects, he was sort of bailing them out. What you were saying about Diggs, I mean the passing game, and for me it comes down to Diggs, who I have said earlier in the year and had thought would be sort of the pretty clear number one. It looked for a stretch in the early going. I mean, he wasn't great the first couple of weeks. It looked for. We
had that conversation about Keenan versus Diggs, and they both started hot, and then Ben since then.
The last 7 games, he's been sub 50 yards 6 times. He had a 100-yard game on Thursday Night Football in there, but everything else sub 40. And he's been sub 50. He's been sub 30 each of the last 3 weeks now. I mean, you're coming down the stretch here, and his routes have fallen again. And I've been trying to figure out why. He had a finger issue, but they keep saying he's fine and he's playing through that. His routes were lower earlier in the year, but I'm having a hard time understanding it. They were using him as sort of their man beater early in the year. They're using him in the red zone a little bit at times. They're going to get the ball to Stephon Diggs when they needed a big play. It feels like they've tried to go other directions with it over time, probably because he's old. But like you said, I mean, if you're in a situation where you're throwing to Matt Collins 8 times and no one else has more than 4 targets on the entire, in the entire passing game, you're only throwing 23 times because you're really trying to run the ball a ton. And ultimately, you're just giving the ball to Travion Henderson until he breaks something. I mean, they started Ramondre Stevenson. They gave him a carry on the first drive, and he actually runs pretty well in this game. 6 carries for 50 yards, but 6 carries. As soon as Travion hit that long run, they're like, we just got to keep giving the ball to the home run hitter because we don't have any other chance to do anything. They gave him 14 carries. He has 2 catches as well, Travion Henderson, more than doubles up Stevenson in carries, despite Stevenson starting. Most of Stevenson's carries coming right away in the early sequence. I mean, he was
6 for 50. It's not like he was getting slowed down either.
No, he wasn't, but he got 3 carries on the first touchdown drive and 3 more the rest of the entire game, despite that efficiency, because I think they're basically saying we have to get the ball to the one guy who can score a touchdown at any point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky matchup when you think about what Buffalo does. And I mean, Blair's matchup tool for this week, which is focusing on the last 6 for these squads, is showing the Bills defense as the 3rd hardest to gain yards after contact against. That's yards after contact over expected, right? So adjusting for where these receivers are catching the ball, they're one of the 10 hardest to create separation against. You think about those numbers, the fact that the Bills rarely blitz, they don't create a lot of pressure, they're sitting back, they're saying you can run the ball against us, you're going to have time, but we don't think that you can beat these schemes that obviously are very cover heavy. And against that, again, to have a game where Douglas has a carry, do you remember if that carry is a true carry or just a pass that maybe gets categorized as reception? Either way, only a single target.
I thought it was an end around, but I can't recall actually. Sean, I watched 15 games today.
And Kyle,
I might be making things
Kyle
up.
Williams, though, right? I mean, those are the two guys you would love to really see more in the mix in this type of game. And I just, as a fan, I want the Patriots to get their young guys involved in a way that they didn't in this one. I think especially coming off of the bye at home in a huge game, that feels like a missed opportunity.
Definitely. Much on the Bills side, we got a lot of games to talk about. The Bills are the Bills. Dawson Knox ends up catching 2 touchdowns. Khalil Shakir gets a long reception that was a weird one that I don't think he really even caught. It was like, but they called DPI, so they weren't going to like challenge it, but it was, I think, picked off. And anyway, he gets 37 yards for that. James Cook, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. Anything to add on them?
Both teams look very similar here. They do score 5 consecutive times, which, I mean, the Bills' argument that they'd have just enough around Josh Allen, and or the argument that at least in 2025, there's no question that Josh Allen, surrounded by a non-elite cast, has been able to do more than Patrick Mahomes with a non-elite cast. Those two players, obviously the best overall players in the NFL over the last 4 or 5 seasons, also the top 2 QB scorers during the fantasy regular season. Unfortunately, we did lose one of them today.
Yeah, we got to talk Mahomes. You were telling me last week the dynasty's over. I was saying it's not really over. You still have Mahomes. I mean, I think I'm a lot closer to saying that something ended this year. Now you have an ACL tear. You got a whole rehab. I mean, I assume he's going to be ready for next year. It's a little easier with the quarterback, but this is a late ACL tear. You start already thinking about early 2026. I mean, he's going to be like right at 9 months removed when we kick off next year. Not even quite. He may not be ready for week 1. Yeah, this is just a bad offensive football game. The Chargers carried over their poor Monday night performance. Justin Herbert just not throwing the ball well right now, has the broken non-throwing hand. Chiefs continue to look lost without any semblance of answers. They looked really good on the first drive, scored a touchdown, and then just nothing, like all game. Trying to run the ball a lot, don't have answers in the passing game. And then you get the Mahomes. I mean, you get the Mahomes rush TD in the first drive. You get him doing some things positively, but then late you get the Mahomes ACL on a drive where, I mean, they just need a field goal to tie the game. Gardner Minshew comes in, throws an interception when they're like knocking on field goal position door. I mean, pretty poor pick there. That game could have at least gone to OT, and then you can, maybe hope or this or that. Also, you just lost Patrick Mahomes, so it's almost like, who cares? Who cares if we win this game? What are we going to do? Sneak into the 6th seed and then go make a run to the Super Bowl without Patrick Mahomes, or the 7th seed? I mean, it's not going to happen there. But I didn't see much in this game. I thought the key signal sort of play of everything that's gone wrong with the Chiefs season was there's a late 3rd and 12. And you have Kareem Hunt running a wheel route. And this is what you get when you have Hunt. You play Hunt. You determine he's good at exactly one thing, inside running. But then you wind up having him on the field for that huge moment because that's just kind of what happens when you play a running back enough. They never wanted Kareem Hunt to be running wheel routes in Week 15 in a must-win game. But that's where they wound up this year, is Kareem Hunt at like 97 years old running downfield routes. And the cornerback turns his head, and there's not even a play. Like, it's not even like Hunt can play defense on it. It's just an easy interception. Wasn't a well-thrown ball, but any like half-decent athlete in that spot is making a play on the ball from behind the corner or not trying to knock it away or whatever. They're down 3 in the 4th in field goal range. That was a spot where they could have tied the game. I don't think they scored again after that.
No, that was weird. We had some unfortunate events in this game. The Chargers seemed somewhat hell-bent on taking the mantle from the Texans as being the dirtiest team in football, which is unfortunate because, I mean, their defense is fantastic, right? They come in over the last 6, allowing the lowest EPA against in terms of running plays, and then you're going to force all of those carries to Isaiah Pacheco. The problem the Chiefs have is they don't have anybody who can win other than, and this will frustrate people, but other than Xavier Worthy, who is just not very physical. And so the defensive backs are allowed to commit pass interference against him at will. You've got some vicious hits on Rashid Rice. You have Tyquan Thornton tackled on a deep ball in this game. No call on that play. That would have changed the game. He takes a vicious hit later where defensive back justifiably gets ejected. It's unfortunate from the Chargers side that they have had these injuries on offense because, Ben, this would be the best team in the NFL. When you think about how well their defense is playing and then consider the carnage on offense with those tackles, with Hampton missing so much time, with Herbert's hand being injured. When you look at this game here where the young guys kind of step up for them a bit on offense. Oronde Gadsden making some nice plays through contact, having to catch in a lot of traffic. He had been quieter after the midseason explosion. He goes 4 for 61 today. They have Trey Harris making some nice plays.
What's up with Ladd McConkey? I mean, he's just...
Well, that was the question that it is fascinating, right? I think that defenses are keying on him to an extent and trying to take him away. But the biggest point, I think, is just that we're so far on the polar opposite from last season where they didn't have anyone and the passing offense was clicking. And if you have Justin Herbert, you have a pass-oriented scheme, you're in these shootouts, you don't have other players, then, Ladd McConkey is going to have this huge target share, and they broke some plays. The plays themselves were a bit fluky, but you have some of those really nice plays on top of all of just the volume that you have, and Ladd McConkey looks like a star. There wasn't really anything about the college profile that suggested that was going to be the case. Now, what we've gotten this season is, again, the opposite end to where you're like, even if they had all of this target competition, you would have expected him to do more, right? You would have expected him to be the guy underneath who could keep the drives going. And this isn't a team that's passing well, as you mentioned, and it's not a team that's been able to extend drives. We have the 4 sacks against Justin Herbert in this one. Where is he on some of these plays as an outlet? But it does look like an offense that's evolving for Keenan Allen to be that guy. Allen leads the team today again in targets with 7, even though it doesn't really do much, right? And then you have the young guys who are more dynamic. You have a touchdown for Keandre Lambert-Smith where, again, maybe it's just watching the game from a little biased perspective. This is the last gasp for the Chiefs, but that's one where several years ago would certainly not have been the touchdown because he catches it, he goes out of bounds, and then he bobbles. It was interesting, the contrast between that play where they don't act like that's an issue, even though you have moved the ball quite a bit after the catch, with the one with Tetairoa McMillan, where he makes a catch on the sideline and goes to the ground. He hits the ground hard enough that one of his hands is knocked off the ball. The other hand keeps it in a vice grip the whole time. Ball never moves from that hand. And the play is considered to be incomplete because the going to the ground knocked one of his 2 hands off. Interesting kinds of plays. I think those are going to be hard. It was surprising that KLS got the touchdown here. I think that he's an exciting part of their future. Certainly Trey Harris, an exciting part of the future. Gadsden, an exciting part. I don't know that even if you were in a dynasty league and thinking, okay, there's bounce back potential for McConkey next year, I think he's going to have a solid long-term career with them. But it already seems like the path to stardom now is almost completely foreclosed. Do you see it that way, or do you think that this is just a weird season for the Chargers where, Justin Herbert will be healthier, he'll play better, they'll probably run the ball more, but the Chargers right now, if you ask me to pick the 2026 entrant in the Super Bowl from the AFC side, it would be the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, but that's been true for the last 20 years of good Chargers teams, and they always get hurt. You're acting like I don't think you could pick that for 2026.
The way the 49ers get hurt. Now, if you told me that next year is going to be Chargers 49ers, if you said, the 49ers are going to lose half their team, I'd be like, yeah, you're probably right.
The Chargers lose half their team every year. And then what about the years where they lost all the games because of just field goal stuff? The prime Phillip Rivers years. And Sean, the next game we got to go to is the Phillip Rivers game. We've waited long enough. I got to talk about Phillip Rivers. But
different coaching staff here for the Chargers.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just
love him or
meant
hate him, whatever. I mean, very much
Yeah.
a competency difference.
Yes,
This
but for a
Chargers
long
team
time,
is going to be a force.
Yeah, they look great. But they had another year where they lost a bunch of key players to derail what was otherwise an awesome year, which has been a story for them dating back to like LaDainian Tomlinson years, man. I mean, it's crazy how frequently this has happened to the Chargers in 20 years. You mentioned Ladd and asked sort of if that's how I see it as far as the superstardom being sort of foreclosed going to the future. I guess I agree, even though I do disagree with some of your, and we've talked about this before, but some of your like discussion of McConkey, whether there was anything in the prospect profile that suggests what he did last year. So what I would say is I come at McConkey going into this year differently than you, more optimistic than you, because I was more optimistic about what his rookie year meant and what his prospect profile was coming in, because I'm more willing to do the like routes adjustments than, you're looking more at the more.
But it was kind of even with the routes adjustments, it's sort of the Devontae Parker final season thing where he doesn't play very much because of injury and what have you. And so if you only have a half season in your final campaign and you put up big numbers, certainly that's better than not, right? I mean, you want the big numbers on a per route basis in a partial season, but a partial season doesn't tell us nearly as much, especially if you don't have the previous seasons.
Of course. All 3 of his years, he had a targets per route over 23%, playing alongside Brock Bowers, playing in the SEC on a national championship team. All 3 years had a strong yards per target and a competent yards per route run. For his career, which included a down sophomore year where he ran the most routes, which was still only 350, over 10 yards per target. That was the part of it. He was actually efficient per target and a pretty solid 23.8% targets per route for an over 2.5 yards per route run. That's not amazing, but at Georgia, playing with other top, first round picks in the SEC, I thought that was the most comparable profile to the things that I thought were interesting about, in hindsight, about Puka Nakua's profile going into that rookie class, obviously last year's rookie class. And then he has the good rookie season. And so my perception of it was, hey, maybe we have another player where injuries limited him on a per route basis and all these things, but there's some signal here in the consistency. I think there's so much about consistency at the wide receiver position, down-to-down consistency, the ability as a true freshman to come out with a 2.71 yards per route, even on a limited route number, 23+% targets per route, 11.5 yards per target, and then, be pretty stable and solid the next 2 years beyond that, I thought was pretty notable. And then to then back that up on a per route basis as a rookie in the NFL, I thought we were looking at a guy I think Puka Nacua is a massive outlier, obviously, in some of these things. And I don't think McConkey was ever in the realm of being the next Nacua, but I know there's a lot of people that were looking at it that way, looking at some of the stats I just said that way. And I guess think,
just to round out a little bit more what I'm thinking in terms of his numbers. I mean, we're talking about a 23-year-old rookie who scored 14 college touchdowns. And I think that both sides of what we're saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Getting to pieces of it.
Yeah, no.
I think you have to be more productive when you're an old college player.
I'm not even disagreeing with you. The only part
to be. Yeah. So I guess my thought on it is that once you have that good season, then people sort of retcon what he was as a college player.
That's right, and I did that.
Two things as separate and not necessarily even equally meaningful, because the rookie season in the NFL is hugely meaningful in terms of what we would expect.
Yeah,
but both pieces meaningful in terms of.
That's what I'm trying to say is I was retconning it. I'm not disagreeing with you, and respectfully, I don't know if I'm maybe saying it well or if you're not really hearing what I'm saying. You said there was nothing in his prospect profile that suggested his rookie season. And I'm saying I saw something in addition to all the things that I look at that you tell me about. Because you're my favorite prospect analyst. I love talking to you about this stuff. All the things you've told me about Ladd mattered to me. And I was very skeptical of Ladd, but I had almost like leaving a candle on for some of these per route things. To me, this was like maybe there's something here. Maybe there's a reason that his other numbers weren't good enough. You said 14 touchdowns. He only ran 665 routes. I mean, that's a season and a half So then 14 touchdowns.
30 games across 21 and 22. It's Georgia, right? So it's different. But you also have to force yourself onto the field as a 20-year-old, as a 21-year-old, if you're going to be an NFL star.
And I think this is a massive thing. We've talked recently. I've used that phrase, volume is efficiency or whatever, I think recently on the show. And we've talked about this. I think your I don't want to say insistence because you're not close-minded about anything, but you always keep the full context, the full numbers in mind over things like per route stuff. And I think it's really strong, and I think it's the right way to do it. That's what I'm trying to like. I'm not saying that was wrong. And what you're saying about McConkey was not a major red flag. I think it was. Having said that, I think I was a little less skeptical or a little more willing to believe there was like an outlier situation. And then I absolutely retconned his rookie season to that after last year. I wasn't that high on McConkey going into this year, mostly because I didn't think they're going to throw as much as they have. I thought there was some team-based stuff. And I thought McConkey... I
just want to be absolutely clear, too, as we're kind of working through this conversation. I am shocked at what he has done this season. Yeah. I would have thought that the worst-case scenario was much better than this.
Right. It's bizarre, even from the perspective of being down on him, I'm sure. I'm just saying, even as somebody who was, I think, more optimistic than you, or definitely more optimistic than you, and more willing to believe that this is like a long-term, really good football player, despite the glaring issues, I think, with the lack of overall volume and how that can, and the stuff I'm saying, even about the targets per route and the consistency, it's good, not great, even though you can make the adjustments of Georgia, SEC, whatever. But then you go have that good rookie year. And that's when I started doing the retconning personally. I was like, hey, I mean, this guy might be a future superstar, but you ask, do I think it's that window's closed? And I still was skeptical enough of McConkey that, like, yeah, when I was worried about team volume and stuff, I was like, I'm not going to make him a major target because I am still skeptical of the long view for all the reasons that you were just talking about. And now you have this season in year 2, and now I'm retconning back to all the stuff that you're saying in the prospect profile that's problematic. But I do think you're constantly trying to figure out what a player is, especially one who ran so few routes in college. And there are these positive, maybe lower volume per route numbers. And even his rookie year, he didn't run that many routes. One of the big notes about his rookie year is like, yeah, he was good in the raw numbers, and in like raw fantasy points, he was even better if you look at the fact that he ran fewer routes and his offense wasn't a huge volume offense. And so you're still trying to figure out what this guy is early in his career because we just don't have a massive sample. You look at this year and you're like, man, this is Hunter Renfrow. Like, that's how bad he's been. Like, it's like, this is that all over again, where we had this really good per route year, the first year. And then year 2, you're like, this is just another, white wide receiver, not to be, not to make too much about.
On the flip side of it, or on the other side of it, if he gets massively punished going into year 3, then I would be excited about taking a value on a player who, I mean, I said he was a 23-year-old rookie, but he was on the very young side of 23-year-old rookie. And then, year 3 in this offense with Justin Herbert, it could go back the other direction, even with the other pieces that they have in place here. Just in general, it could go back, but also, as we see, you're mentioning, receiver is not the position that they've had injuries with. But you think about the way injuries happen over the course of the season. You take a few of these players out who look like they'll emerge. And it looks like Trey Harris will emerge. It looks like Gadsden will emerge. You have injuries to some of those guys, you can be right back where McConkey is the passing portion of the offense. And the offense with those tackles and with Hampton in year 2 and healthy, it should be very efficient and also explosive.
Totally. And I want to be clear also that I don't think McConkey is Hunter Renfrow. I was just making a point about how he's looked this year at times, but I like your note there as well. If we do get a good price on him, I still think people do sometimes overreact too much on this stuff. The first year still matters. I mean, we always got to keep the long view in mind. He's had the thing that I think is still interesting about the college stuff is the strong yards per target every year, which he had last year. And I don't think he's had this year. I haven't really looked at the full season numbers recently, but I do think there's the potential for this guy to be pretty efficient with Justin Herbert in future years. And so if you can get him cheap at times and try to bet on that efficiency cheaply, his yards per target's way down this year. I do think That's interesting. I don't know how much volume he'll necessarily earn, but you can get splash efficiency. You can bet on that part of it because he is an athletic player. And I do think he's at least a good player. It's fascinating in year 2 that he's had such a down year. Let's talk about that. So let's move from a young player who we don't know what he is to the oldest player in the NFL. I want to talk about Philip Rivers. Specifically, Sean, I want to get your thoughts on one play. The play where he fell down.
I thought maybe you were going to ask if I was excited that Philip Rivers is trying single-handedly to, well, we won't get into too much detail on this, but Ben, the biggest problem actually facing the earth right now is underpopulation. We have population crash in almost every developed country in the world. We're going to have wars. We're going to have all types of disaster because you can't get to where we are with the population size and then dramatically reduced. It is the number one problem facing the world. It's pretty cool that Philip Rivers has a decent number of kids, already has grandkids. It's doing much better than I am on any of these metrics that are more important than football. What do we have going on football?
He has one grandkid, as I talked about on the broadcast, one grandson. They showed his son, who's a high school quarterback, and his brother in the stands several times, talked about his 10 kids several times. He dropped back in the second quarter, lost his footing at the top of his drop, wasn't down, got back up, tried to run. Nothing looked more like a 44-year-old on an NFL field that I've ever seen. I mean, there's been old players on the field before. This guy falling down, getting up, and trying to run back toward the line and still getting sacked. You know what play I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was not quite as fun as the one, because like on that one, he got down and got back up, right? Like moved a little bit. There was one play where he was flushed. Like he was flushed from the pocket, but I've never seen someone flush from the pocket where they definitely still would not have qualified on the intentional grounding rules because he was flushed about a foot and then had to throw it.
He's a dead sprint and he can't get outside the tackle box.
And it was pretty amusing, Ben, because it actually just looked exactly like all the passes he threw in the last 5 years of his career. That's one of the reasons why I was mildly optimistic for what he could potentially do, is because I couldn't imagine a quarterback actually having a weaker arm than what he had down the stretch of his actual career. The other thing about this game that you can either look at as amusing or a little bit disappointing is they probably should have won, and for 3 quarters he looked better than Sam Darnold.
Yeah, no, Sam Darnold. The next closest thing to somebody looking like a 44-year-old on an NFL field was Sam Darnold getting absolutely lit up, trying to scramble, apparently not seeing a guy right in front of him, and the ball going flying out, fumbling like 10 yards in the air and landing out of bounds. That's what I thought was going to happen to Rivers. He'd try to scramble at some point, and somebody would just hit him so hard the ball go flying out of bounds, and it'd be a slapstick. It was Sam Darnold, who I guess doesn't know to slide, got absolutely lit up. Sam Darnold isn't good. He really struggled to find anything in this game, looked uncomfortable in the pocket all day. He's been struggling for several weeks now. It's a real problem for a Seattle team that otherwise might be this, like one. You're talking about the Broncos being the favorites in the AFC. I mean, I think Seattle's right there. They are. Last week, we're talking about the Super Bowl futures. They were second behind the Rams. This is a
that
team
surprises me, I guess. The people putting the lines together have watched Sam Darnold play because there are cascade effects here, right? You have Zach Charbonnet is 8 for 31, and you're thinking, man, Zach Charbonnet looks like peak Marshawn Lynch. Kenneth Walker is 9 for 17 and probably should not get a carry ever again.
Yeah, he looks
not
bad.
Within the context of this offense, right? There's nowhere for these guys to go. You can't run and you can't throw because Sam Darnold can't read the defense and throw. Now, the Colts actually have a decent pass defense here. One of the things that has been unfortunate with the injuries they've suffered recently is that the Colts are an excellent team. And you're kind of hoping that Rivers like somehow could magically pull off this story and he can complete. I mean, one of the things that was interesting here, 5 completions to Amir Abdullah. We expected that kind of thing to happen. There was a pass where we had the funniest play of the, we haven't discussed the funniest one, right? Where Josh Downs like convincingly beats his man on a little bit of an out and up and then raises his hand And he's like, I'm open. And Phillip Rivers is like, I knew you were going to be open. I threw it 5 minutes ago because that's what I was going to have to do to get it there. The ball like lands right next to Josh Downs, who's got his hand up, but he's open. He's like, I didn't turn and look, but
you should have turned and looked a lot. Yeah, that was very funny. Should have turned and looked a lot earlier, Josh Downs, because I mean, number one, Phillip Rivers is going to see it early enough, and number two, he's not going to be able to throw it far enough to lead you unless he gets it out now, and you find it. Like when you turn your head around, it's like landing in your breadbasket. That game. So you mentioned 5 receptions for Amir Abdullah, 4 targets, 3 catches for Jonathan Taylor. That's 9 of the 27 pass attempts to the running backs. He did push it a little bit early. He tried to fit some throws into like Tyler Warren. The first throw of the game was a deep shot, or kind of a deep shot. I mean, it was a vertical throw. Right to the sideline. Why can't I remember the play? Again, I watched too many plays, but wasn't the very first throw he made like to the boundary, like a downfield throw? Or am I thinking of a different game now?
It could be a different one. There were 2 early attempts to Warren where Warren drops back-to-back passes. So you see the 6 targets for him in the game line.
It was a wheel route to 3. It was a wheel route to Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. Sorry. It was a wheel route to Jonathan Taylor, his first throw, and Taylor almost caught it. And then it touched the ground as he rolled over. But it was like 20 yards downfield. It's the longest throw he had all day.
Yeah. A little bit of a trap there. Taylor's like, kind of have it, kind of don't have it.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Warren should have maybe caught some of those. A couple of them, Warren is getting like hit by 3 dudes because like the Seahawks are definitely pressing down and daring Phillip Rivers to throw over their heads. And it's not like he can do that. So he does hit Alec Pierce on a really big comeback route on the go-ahead field goal drive late in the game. I mean, they go kick a field goal and take the lead with...
Then you've got to make a stop against Sam Darnold.
47 seconds left. Blake Grupe steps up and buries a 60-yarder.
This is a guy who was cut a month ago, knocked down a 60-yarder like it was nothing.
And they give up a 28-yard return to the 37 from Shaheed, and then 2 completions to Shaheed. And then Jason Myers knocks down a 56-yarder back. I mean, these guys were absolutely clutch. Right before that, Myers had made a field goal. Not long before that, Grupe had made another. Maybe it was a while before that, but Grupe had made another long field goal in this game, 54-yarder in the second quarter, in the first half. But these guys were banging long kicks. It's about the only thing they were doing.
There were 21 possessions in this game. 9 of them, I believe, ended in field goals.
Dude, okay, so I got to ask you, did you watch the actual broadcast or did you watch the cut-ups for this? Because the one highlight of this game, shout out to CBS, apparently their crew got taken up by a seaplane and they got some footage from, and it was like a abnormally clear day up here in Seattle yesterday. And they got some incredible footage for like going in and out of commercials of the Seattle area. They filmed it all from a seaplane yesterday. It was awesome. It was the best like footage of a city. I mean, obviously I'm biased. It's my city, but it was the best footage of a city you'll ever see going in and out of a game. It was incredible.
That's great to hear. We, some of us on the show have been concerned that you don't like your city enough because you always go out of your way to say, I'm not a Seattle Seahawks fan. I was watching the broadcast, but I didn't have time to stop in and just enjoy Seattle the way I probably should have. Maybe go back to that.
You should go back to that. I think anyone who has that game recorded should go back and watch all the breaks in and out of commercials. CBS also shout out to them. City. Yeah, it's beautiful. Shout out to they got the mountains, they got the hills, they got the lakes, they got everything, dude. They did an awesome job. They got the stadiums, they got a good shot of the space. They got some good angles of the city. I loved it. They had a great CBS also had a great nursing home graphic that was hilarious for Phillip Rivers. The stat they showed some things on the board, some different stats. The stat that was the highlight of my day, they put on a board, and I think this is made up. It has to be made up. Older than 13 active NFL head coaches. That's not true. I know there's a lot of young head coaches. There's no way he's older. He's older than more than a third of the NFL's head coaches. Almost half.
It was a very fun part of the day. I wish they had won. I wish he was able to throw a few passes slightly further. He does end up with a better QBR than Sam Darnold, which QBR is a nonsense stat, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But you mentioned that return at the end from Shaheed. They made the trade for him. It was a little bit of a slow burn in terms of getting any production, but he now is supplanting Cooper Kupp as the second receiver. 7 targets today, looked explosive. If you're a Seattle fan, I think you got to be pretty excited about that move. It does give them additional speed opposite JSN. It's going to make it a little bit more difficult for teams to play gadget coverages against JSN. We talked about the inability to make some of these throws, hurting the running game. Maybe Shaheed is the piece that unlocks some of this down the stretch and does allow them to compete a little bit more effectively with the NFC heavyweights.
Oh, so you wanted to actually like analyze the football in the game, I guess.
No, I'm trying to think of like topographical map jokes over here. You're mentioning all these like landscape elements, but
did you see
a different thing?
I gave my former employer CBS a bunch of credit for running this game awesome. Did you see the graphic where they had a red team background? It said C Sutton 14, like Cortland Sutton. It was a picture of somebody from, I think, the Buccaneers. I don't even know who it was. It said last week versus Denver, which is obviously not Sutton. And it said 5 receptions, 56 yards. And get this, on 5 receptions, 56 yards, 9 TDs. 9 TDs. They flashed a filler graphic. I caught a screen cap for stealing signals. It's going to be in there. CBS, an eventful game covering Phillip Rivers' return. Now, this offensive game sucked. Yeah, Rashid Shaheed was interesting. JSN, you mentioned, had the uncharacteristic drop early. He caught everything else the rest of the game to make up for it. 7 of his other 8 targets were completions, 113 yards. He's the only thing that was at all remotely interesting in this game. Other than Shaheed. Shaheed, was also remotely interesting. But there's nothing else. Jonathan Taylor.
Sorry, the funny graphics there. I do have to. It reminds me of my favorite story of ever watching sports telecasts, where I assume this person was an intern. I assume that they wanted to be fired on that day as opposed to on any days later and have to work for free for another moment. 10, 15 years ago, what have you, I'm watching the college softball playoffs. And in a unique twist, the players' names as they come up on the screen, instead of giving like their stats and whatnot, they were doing what you might do for a professional football game or a college football game, something that's appropriate with men, but they were listing weights, but they weren't listing real weights. These ladies were all like 253 pounds, et cetera, et cetera. It went on for like an inning and a half.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So anyone who was featured that day and anyone who was watching, I would like to reassure you that none of those ladies weigh 250 pounds.
That was, I'm sure, a massive scandal in the whatever, softball community that you were watching. Anyway, Seahawks win 18-16 in a game that most people who watched it wish didn't happen. What other games not wish didn't happen, but more or less could forget it, other than the fact that a really old guy was trying to move around, and it was funny. It was funny, man.
Then we had some great football today. Rams 41, Lions 34.
Rams, yeah, that's where I was going to go. Rams Lions was awesome. We get 2 300-plus yard passers easily. Amon-Ra has a huge day. Jamison Williams looks fantastic. He's been much more consistent over the last couple weeks, even with Amon-Ra back here. Actually, he played last week as well. He played on the short week despite the ankle thing. But Jamison's been, I know he had a career high in receptions recently. He's been doing a lot more. He looked really good. It seemed to me like the game plan was like, make Goff beat them going to the wide receivers. I mean, you have the little subplots here, right? Where both these quarterbacks were traded for each other. Both these quarterbacks are facing their former teams. Obviously, Sean McVay intimately familiar with Jared Goff. It seemed like he was trying to force him to beat him. And early on, Jared Goff was like, I can do that. I'll go ahead and do that. Like, I've been hitting Amon-Ra for multiple touchdowns, and he hits Jameson Williams for a long TD, hits Williams on the hands that he had to dive for with another deep shot early in the second half, near a narrow miss there. But Williams, 134 yards and a touchdown. Those two guys had huge games. No tight ends caught any passes. Gibbs only has 4 catches for 20 yards. They really seem to be trying to bottle Gibbs up, in my opinion, pretty much all game, and not give Goff anything short or easy. Everything felt like it had to be vertical and a lot harder. And Goff did pretty darn well.
Yeah, I mean, 34 points, almost a perfect QBR, 3 touchdowns, 1 sack. He was better than Matthew Stafford in this game, but in part because, as you mentioned, obviously none of this stuff is about fantasy football, but it felt like they were just trying to take Gibbs out of play for week 1 of the fantasy sprint, what have you. Everything about their defense was geared to him. The flip side of that, I mean, Kyren Williams and Blake Corum just cut through this Lions defense that has been sturdy against the run. I mean, those two guys right now are on absolute fire. Couldn't stop them. Also couldn't stop Puka Nacua, who just a force of nature again today. 9 for 181. It's sort of one of those deals where you're a bit disappointed for him and the fantasy managers that there were all these other scores that were bigger, because the full perspective of it, I mean, Puka's 9 for 181 was probably the most impressive performance of the week. Certainly more impressive than Kyle Pitts on Thursday night against a team that didn't seem like they understood they were in a playoff chase.
I don't know why Kyle Pitts just caught shade. I thought Kyle Pitts was great, but I thought Puka Nacua was awesome as well. I totally agreed. He had a beautiful downfield catch at one point on the sideline. Devonta Adams very quiet in this game. Hurts his hamstring early in the fourth quarter. Seems like he's probably going to have to miss some time the way that he pulled up. They get Colby Parkinson going. His routes have been rising and rising with Higbee out. They're still trying to do some of the 3 tight end stuff, but the tight end stuff is now more concentrated. Parkinson clearly the top route runner right now. He ends up 575, 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns, clearly not a touchdown. They review it and they say it stands because they can't see enough to overturn it. The broadcast was calling it a bizarre decision that they didn't overturn it.
Then this was one where they're like, he was down at the 1.5, but we're also not sure if he caught the ball. It's like, if you put those 2 things together,
we can't overturn the call.
Then it's
the call has to stand.
If it's like an incomplete pass and down at the 1.5 times each other, the final solution is touchdown.
Equals touchdown. Equals stick with the call on the field. We don't know what to do. I honestly, I haven't seen anything like that. They usually don't do that these days. But he got 2 touchdowns. He caught another one later. But yeah, Kyren Williams, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. Corum, 71 and 1. Kyren was more involved throughout today. They've talked about scaling him back a little. He had the 15 carries. Corum with 11 and gets a lot late. He was getting the stuff in the obvious run spots when they had the lead late. I do think they like him as the preferred back when it's an obvious running situation, like closing out and plus script late. But Kyren, I mean, still very clearly the number 1 in as far as how I was seeing the usage. You kind of agree with that?
Yeah, it was a situation where one of the touchdowns was on a drive where it seemed like Corum was going to get the touchdown on that drive too. And so for Williams to score on that one was big to get to the second score. It's been interesting to watch. And I mean, Corum is certainly one of these guys where a lot of the stuff that you would talk about from Michigan that's impressive, where he goes north and south. He's not particularly fast, but he does see the lanes and can get into the lanes and is not so slow like some of the other, big backs where you can't make anything out of it. The Rams are opening up gigantic holes for these 2 guys. But the difference from last year to this year for Kyren Williams is a lot what they talked about in the offseason, wanting to get him healthier and more explosive. He talked about working on his explosiveness in the offseason. They have made a big point about keeping him healthy and fresh. The last couple of weeks, the types of runs that he has had, his movement in space has been completely different than the 2024 season. I mean, he looks like one of the best running backs in football right now, especially if you're going to open these holes for him. I mean, Stafford.
Can you imagine how good Jarquez Hunter would look beyond this offensive line?
Well, then you take these two guys out and you get Jarquez to 150 and 3, and you're like, golden. Let's count our money.
Sorry, I had to. Shawn, there was like 3 or 4 Stealing Bananas listeners that were at some point brought up like Jarquez Hunter to me on some, because a lot of them like will DM me and stuff I've mentioned before, but it was like
I was about one sentence away from saying pick him back up. Look at how well these two guys are doing. So we were anticipating the same thing.
And like all 4 of those lines was basically, I'm so sorry for you that Shawn made you draft Jarquez Hunter on every single team. I'm like, you guys don't realize half the time he does this, the guy ends up being the MVP of the league. But yeah, the Jarquez Hunter thing. Unfortunately, he hasn't got a lot of opportunity. I think you're right. I think if he got on the field, he would probably look really good beyond this line too.
He was inactive today, in case you were wondering.
I just remember in preseason, you were like, Jarquez Hunter, dude, we got to get him. And I'm like, Shawn, are you watching the preseason games? Blake Corum looks really good, and Jarquez Hunter doesn't really look very good. Like, are we sure we're drafting the right Rams backup? And you're like, yeah, we got the right guy.
One of the things that is a bit surprising with all of that, obviously I love Jarquez Hunter. I think that, at this point, you look at it and you're like, not only is it not great for this year, but now he's pretty definitively blocked for the long term. They were so excited about him. The people watching training camp thought that he was the best of the 3 backs. Obviously, that's not the case. I don't expect it to be the case in the future with how well these two guys are playing either. I mean, they're playing well. And there's an offensive line component. There's a Matthew Stafford component. There is a total point element here. But yeah, these two guys look good.
Yeah, for sure. Anything on Jameson? Did you think that was particularly interesting? I thought he looked good. I thought he looked really, really good today.
He looked more dialed in too. I mean, sometimes with the mistakes, you will see a player who still the vestiges of the problems he had as a young guy, the gambling types of things. They were frustrated with how quickly, he came through on some of the rehab stuff. Obviously, you have that storyline with Brandon Ayuk where the 49ers are just like, you didn't want to rehab for the season. I mean, we're going to do everything we can now to let people know that like you just took your money and like didn't work to get ready.
Well, they've more or less started the most ball. From what I understand, they're going to get all that money back. He's not going to get his money.
We'll see what happens there. But I mean, Williams has extreme speed, right? We talk from time to time about the tracking and the college numbers with him. And you think about Bryce Young and kind of where he is with his career. Jameson Williams may be the fastest man in football. And now he's making plays on the ball. They're using him off of Amon-Ra. Now, this is a situation where it was just so cool to see how concentrated it was today. I mean, 18 targets for Amon-Ra St. Brown. At a certain point, you wonder like if the Rams are going to do anything to try and stop him. But then the 9 for Jameson Williams, that deep touchdown, those were the plays that he occasionally would get open for in his first couple of seasons in the NFL. And Jared Goff simply would miss him. The pass today, I mean, he's wide open, right? It would have been hard to miss that pass, but I mean, Jared Goff puts it perfectly there. Williams makes a couple of catches through mild contact, which is something you're looking for from him. Anytime he catches the ball horizontally, he's one of these guys where, I mean, he has the potential to get the edge. I mean, 7 for 134, right? These two guys who go 164 and 134 in the same game, Jared Goff looked fantastic. It was just kind of unfortunate that things fell like they did, that they had a little bit of a slow start to the second half, and that the defense couldn't handle the running game to where they didn't have the ball very much in the first half. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, we know he's a superstar. the throw that Matthew Stafford made that was picked wasn't a good throw, but it wasn't a terrible throw. It was like an Aiden Hutchinson decides Godzilla like to rise up out of the ground and pick that ball out of the air and run it almost all the way back. The Lions have had some unfortunate injuries on defense the last couple of seasons that have kept them from being the NFC favorite. I'm a Lions fan. I wanted them to win this game. Both teams looked very, very good. The offensive savvy from both play callers, I thought was absolutely fantastic.
It was a really, really fun game. You mentioned it seemed like Amon-Ra, like at what point are they actually going to try to stop him? He had 2 4th down conversions in this game. They look good. You want to talk about the Texans and Cardinals?
Did Trey McBride have a game?
Trey McBride played. That's mostly all I want to talk about. Trey McBride can do everything. That guy is insane. What I loved about this game, we've been talking about McBride a lot on the show for 2 years now. He started 2 years ago, middle of the year. He started playing more, and we were just basically gushing over him every week down the stretch in 2023. And basically both decided on this show that he was going to be our tight end 1 the next year. And he was for both of us the whole offseason and going into last year over, Laporta and the other guys. And it panned out, obviously, other than the fact that Brock Bowers is even better than him. And then this year, more in on Brock Bowers and McBride's better than Bowers. I mean, that's super fun. Getting them both right, but having more exposure to the wrong one in the wrong year has been super fun for me. But Trey McBride, one of the things I've said, I think multiple times, is he's my favorite player now. I mean, he's such a fun dude. Mark Schlereth, hands down the worst color commenter in all of football. The guy adds nothing, just says the thing that's happening. Whatever happened, it happened because, the thing, like the most, whatever, nothing, there's nothing insightful. There's never anything that's like, oh yeah, you just added some color commentary to this. You're just telling me exactly the thing with some cliche. Anyway, he said about halfway through the game, I think I got a new favorite player. This guy, Trey McBride. And I was like, oh, great. Worst person I know just said the perfect thing. But I mean, Mark Schlereth.
Then this, like every week, the commentator breaks protocol, breaks professionalism, and just tells the entire national audience, or in the Cardinals case, the local audience plus whoever has NFL Sunday ticket, that Trey McBride is their new favorite player. And this is a game against a Houston Texans defense that seems like they're playing 14 or 15 guys, right? You have 4 or 5 guys in the backfield every time. You're sacking the quarterbacks left and right. You're blowing up the running backs. Jacoby Brissett, I mean, this dude, 27 for 43 touchdowns, 250 yards passing against this defense. But finally, Michael Wilson gets shut down. He ends up with a touchdown in this one as well still. But against the Texans, Trey McBride catches 12 of his 13 targets, goes for 134 yards, scores 2 touchdowns. He's catching balls down the field. He's catching balls in double teams. Right. That one that wasn't caught, he got hit by 2 people as the ball got there. I was worried for. And they were a bunch of manufactured.
You were worried for the 2 players that tried to hit him.
Well, that's probably who I should have worried for. But he did just carry on as they bounced off, and also the ball bounced. They had a ton of screens to him today where they're like, you just catch it and then run. And he's running down the field, and these Texans guys are trying to hit him. And I mean, you know what the Texans are like, right? And the Texans are scary.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do anything. And then after the plays, he would get up and in a fun-loving way, taunt their sideline. And you felt like by the end of the game that the Texans were rooting for him. They're like, obviously we won this game easily.
Yeah. They talked to DeMeco Ryans at halftime, and they specifically asked him, they're like, hey, Trey McBride had a great first half. What are you going to do to try to shut him down in the second half or make it different? And I've never heard DeMeco Ryans say anything nice about a player on the other team. He's constantly all business. We hate the other team. They're the enemy. And he was like, hey, look, Trey's a great player. He's going to make some great plays. We have to make more plays than him or something like that. And I was just like, DeMeco Ryans loves Trey McBride. That was the nicest thing anyone's ever. He's his favorite player too. I mean, there was a defender at one point that got so mad about the little taunting and he's such a football player. He's excited and energetic. It's like Gronk, but not so like childish. Like it's like the adult.
Well, and not to get too far into the weeds because we've done that already on plenty of the topics, but I mean, Trey McBride is a fantastic dude off the field as well. And then when you watch him doing some of these things in the game, it's just a celebration of football and sports, and certainly fantasy because the Cardinals are not going to win. It's awesome to be able to have that style of play, right? So again, things that happened in this game that probably everybody knows about, but the 100 catches, the 1,000 yards, the 10 touchdowns, the third tight end ever do that. I think the first tight end with back-to-back 100 yards or 100 reception seasons. I mean, Trey McBride is just rewriting the record book for tight ends at this point. And
also set the record for the 5+. They talked about it every week this year, but he's continuing to move. And in this game, he broke the record for consecutive games with 5+ receptions. But the little taunting thing he did to the D lineman after the play, the D lineman grabbed his face mask and like just yanked him around. And he's like, puts his hands up like, that's got to be a flag. They throw the flag and he's just like clapping. He's not even like mad. He doesn't even like go fight you. He's just like, you can't do that. I know the rules. I'm not going to play, a victim to your little game and like get called for being the second man. I'm just going to laugh that you just got a personal foul. And like, I mean, just everything that he does in the football field is, like you said, it's a celebration of football. It's within the rules of the game, but he plays so hard. He plays so physical. He's so skilled and talented. And like you said, he wins downfield. He wins on screens with yak and all the different things. He does not shy away from contact. He's just a classic football player. He's super fun to watch.
There were a couple plays today where he's already gained like 30 yards and he's on the sideline and he's got two guys coming for him. And you're like, get out of bounds. He's like, nope, I'm going to lower my shoulder and hit this guy just to pick up another 6 inches.
Right. And like, the thing is, he's not going to get hurt. I mean, knock on wood, but like, he's Trey McBride. There was a point where he like banged his head a little bit and he like shook his head. And I mean, look, last week I was on here talking about the T. Higgins stuff, and it was so sad to hear. I had some people DM me about it because they heard the rant about it. It was so sad to hear he had concussion symptoms the next week, and he's now out for a little bit of time now. The concussion stuff is very, very serious. The T, as Sean's camera disappears here, so I started talking about T. Higgins. I don't know what happened to him. But the Trey McBride little head thing today, I mean, it's like Trey McBride can't get a concussion because like he gives concussions to I don't know the field. He gives a concussion to I don't know. Anyway, I'm saying that in a weird way, but he was like, yeah, I'm good. I mean, it's like you don't even I don't know. I'm usually worried about dudes when they bang their head, and I'm not Trey McBride for some reason. He seems unbreakable is what I'm trying to get at here.
We had a big game in relief for Jordan. You have CJ Stroud, almost impeccable today. This has been a weird season for Nico Collins. Hasn't been able to do what he had done in 23 and 24. Hasn't been able to draw a lot of targets. Did not draw many targets in this game, only 4. The Cardinals simply had a shell around Dalton Schultz to where they didn't have anyone within 15 yards of him on any play. And so he easily leads the Texans in targets. But on those 4 little targets that Collins has, he does go for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was a big fantasy piece today, even on very low volume. And I told you that Texans were almost at the very top of my rankings. I think Texans and Broncos continue to move up today. I'm excited for these teams against the Bills and the Patriots. I think that part of the AFC is going to be fun. We didn't get much from Cincinnati Bengals. Ravens was not one of those games that you came out of feeling like you had just had a celebration of football.
Did you think that Lamar Jackson completing 8 of 12 passes was a high volume game, or how did you feel about that?
It could have been a massive game if Zay Flowers doesn't drop his second touchdown. Zay does get in the end zone. Rasheen Ali gets in the end zone. Jamar Chase, 10 for 132. This wasn't the only shutout today. The other one, less surprising, Kenny Pickett and company get shut out by the Eagles.
Yeah, that one was a blowout. Zay had an eventful game, bobbled the ball for an INT, made a really nice downfield catch before half that set up his own TD after that, another little long completion. And then, as you said, was unable to bring in what could have been a second touchdown. Ravens looked good. Derrick Henry runs for 100 yards on only 11 carries. They didn't run a lot of plays is the reason that Lamar didn't end up throwing a lot. I thought the Ravens they only ran 40 plays in this game. They won 24-0. I thought they looked really good, a lot better, particularly defensively. I thought they were really, really strong defensively. We talked about them recently. You were saying that their defense may be a little bit overrated, doesn't actually necessarily live up to the narrative that they had gotten healthy and gotten a lot better. I thought this was a game that showed the opposite of that a little bit. We've been talking a lot about the AFC North and who's going to end up winning that. I think this Ravens team is still going to definitely win it. They got a lot of work to do after they lost to the Steelers the first time. I think they'll beat them again the second time. Tomorrow night's game is going to be a big part of that because the Steelers are 3-point favorites, I believe, at home against Miami. Miami's playing really good football right now on the bubble. If Miami can go into Pittsburgh and beat Pittsburgh, then I think Baltimore is going to be in pretty decent position going forward. But if not, the Ravens do have the tougher schedule, as you were pointing out, and the Steelers have. They have the Dolphins, plus I think they have the Titans, and so the Ravens really need, and the tiebreaker, even if the Ravens beat the Steelers later, is going to come down to conference opponents, and they really need the Steelers, I believe, to lose another conference game. They're probably not going to lose the Titans. It's kind of the Monday night game. So by the time some people hear this on Tuesday, they're like, Ben, you're an idiot. But I thought Baltimore looked good again. I thought they looked good for a 7-7 team that's obviously not having the best year. But yeah, I
thought this one was surprising. I guess I wouldn't say that their defense was elite so much as, and again, none of these things wipe out something else that's happening. It was 10 degrees. They did have multiple drives that ended on downs. They had some picks. It was a very different story today than when they played a couple weeks ago. And the T. Higgins absence, especially with Yosher Voss dropping a key pass. I mean, they look pretty undermanned against the Ravens today.
Well, the Ravens offense didn't sustain any drives. The Bengals got to run 71 plays, 4.2 yards per play, despite
it was 71-40, and the Ravens still had more total yards.
And the Ravens still dominated the game, 24-0. Bengals don't even get to 300 yards despite running 71 plays. You don't see that because to run all those plays, you need to be moving the ball. Again, the Ravens just kind of kept giving the ball back to them. That's where I think the Ravens D was maybe not elite, but they kept holding up over and over and over again.
Then I don't know if I've ever seen this. I'm sure this happens occasionally, and people won't be surprised given the 71-40 edge. But the time of possession was 39-19 to 20-41.
It doesn't happen. I don't think that's a real number. That's crazy. You don't see 2-1 on time of possession. And that's the team that got shut out that dominated the possession. It's insane. I wrote in my notes, my first note was one of those 20-25 games where you just don't get a full game because we just got slow offense in the Bengals early. The Ravens got a well-timed pick 6 late to put it away. The Bengals ran a bunch after that, down 24-0. Didn't really even try the rest of the fourth quarter. It's just over. It's just like we fast-forwarded to the end of the game. I mean, that's what we get sometimes in 2025 these days. Maybe that was the way it was in the past. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like teams are more willing to throw in the towel, and they don't need to be tough and play to the final whistle. They're like, look, 17-game seasons. We know about all these injuries. We know about all this stuff. Like, sometimes we just give up, and we just run out the game, and that's part of why the Ravens never really had to push offensively. They never got pushed. The Bengals had some good drives, and they got some takeaways in those things. But the Eagles game, the Raiders game, Brock Bowers, 6 catches, 28 yards, leads the team in receiving. Market share of, let me tell you what percentage of Kenny Pickett's yards he got. 44% of his team's passing yardage. Elite stuff, Shawn Siegele. Kenny Pickett threw for 64 passing yards. If you take out his 35 yards lost in sacks, it's a net of 29 team passing yards. Don't fret, though. They ran for 46 yards.
Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown combined for 4 targets.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders had 75 total yards. They had 7 first downs. They didn't even try.
No, they did not. That's just disheartening. Sunday Night Football. J.J. McCarthy showing a little spirit in this one. Over 10 yards per attempt, a couple touchdowns. We have a rushing touchdown from him.
Did you catch the part where they talked about his throwing motion? They showed a side-by-side of, I think, Josh Allen in college at Wyoming. And then it was basically like they've identified that his throwing motion's a little bit off. It shouldn't be like that. They know it. Everyone knows it. They're going to address it in the offseason, Chris Collinsworth said. So that's the big plan. They're going to reteach him how to throw a football. Optimistic?
He had, I mean, even more shocking than the Brock Bowers stuff this season. Because with the tight end premium and all of these little garbage catches, I mean, Brock Bowers is still scoring points. Justin Jefferson today, 8 more targets, 2 catches for 22 yards. He's wide open in the end zone. And J.J. McCarthy slipply throws the ball so hard that there was like no point in that ball's travel, even though it hits Justin Jefferson in both hands. And he just like sprints back to the huddle. There was no point during that ball's travel where the catch probability ever jumped above like 10%.
It was extremely low. I think Collinsworth, they're showing the slow-mo replay, and Collinsworth's, that's one he's going to wish he had back. And I'm like, yeah, he does wish he had it back. He also wishes he could have got his arms up high enough by the time the ball got there. If you really watch the slow-mo carefully, he never even gets his hands up high enough. The ball is thrown 80 miles per hour, and by the time he's like turned around and he's like, I mean, yeah, he wishes he had it back, but like the ball did not need to be thrown that hard. It was absurd. He also lost a touchdown to an illegal formation in this game. There was a play from Jackson Dart today that I think Jackson Dart has had several of these plays this year, and I think it's really positive going forward for him. There's a play in the late third quarter. It was a 4th and 1 play action. There's no one open, but he recognized he also had time. You see guys speed up the process because they're like, I've had the ball too long. He kind of looks around the pocket. They're not pressuring him because they're worried about his legs because it's 4th and 1. They're kind of like spying him on both sides of the line. We cannot break contain. He's not going to scramble for the first down. They did a play action. No one's actually pressuring very hard. So he's like aware of that. It's the kind of thing Sam Darnold could never do. Sam Darnold would like run into a sack at the line of scrimmage or, I don't know, throw the ball out of bounds or something. But Jackson Dart is standing there and is like, I'm comfortable in the pocket because I'm aware of where the 11 defenders are, and none of them is actually pressing upfield right now. Takes his time, looks around, realizes he has the time. But the key thing that made me think of this as we were talking about McCarthy, as he spots Daniel Bellinger, and even though he's been in the pocket for this long, he's held the ball this long, the time to throw is this high, you see guys at that point, even when they find an open receiver, they throw it way too hard because they're sped up. They just get the ball out quick. Dart just throws a nice soft touch pass over the line of scrimmage, 4th and 1, easy catch for Daniel Bellinger, first down. He just knew what he had in the whole play. Like, it extended the play without even moving around. He just stayed right where he was in the pocket. There's so few guys who just stay there in the pocket. It was a very poised play on a play that didn't go to plan. He had to come to, but his second or third option was not scramble because that's not the way that the defense was playing it. They weren't giving you the scramble there. You needed to stay put, which is kind of hard to do at the NFL level for a rookie especially. He's had several of these types of plays throughout his rookie year. He's very, very impressive. By comparison, the J.J. McCarthy pass to Justin Jefferson you're talking about, Justin Jefferson's wide open. You see him. He's wide open. You have to put some touch on the ball. You have to take some off it.
Yeah, Dart, in many cases this season, has felt like a little bit more physically talented version of Bo Nix. But certainly if you have that quarterback who can move, who can scramble, who can extend plays, and then throw accurately, it's a pretty huge deal. The other thing that was just, again, so striking in this game, and in some ways it seems weird to say with Dak Prescott throwing for 294 yards, but he's been on fire, right? And the fantasy average for Prescott over the last 6 or 7 games has been absolutely huge. even good defenses have struggled to stop them, especially when everybody has been healthy. Brian Flores, if not for the J.J. McCarthy situation, would also be someone who would be getting accolades in terms of having one of the best coordinating seasons of the last decade, right? A bit frustrating because Javonte Williams is breaking all these runs. They weren't able to stop the run at all. And yet what they were able to do to Prescott, what they were able to do to George Pickens, obviously Pickens in a little bit of trouble for effort last week, comes in this game, doesn't look like Pickens is not one of these guys that you can motivate very well by criticizing him. He's like, if you're going to criticize, I can drop my effort level lower. He's like, that's how I got out of Pittsburgh. But you have Ryan Flynn playing pretty well. You've got some situations where they get Turpin into some space. Prescott has handled the rush. He's handled the different coverages. He's pushed the ball downfield. He was not able to do those things in this game today, in a must-win for the Cowboys. Obviously, their playoff odds were very poor coming in. This game is the nail. The mix that the Vikings have here, and coming off of the victory last week, and again, it's unfortunate the QB play has taken them out. We've watched them for a couple of years be one of the better teams in football, have a couple of years ago a lot of close victories that people didn't necessarily give them credit for. They have the good season last year. And it feels like the defense, in many cases or in many ways, playing better than ever, given that you're always more or less playing from behind when you have this level of quarterback play. It was frustrating. I was playing a lot of Cowboys today, but I thought it was a very impressive performance from the Minnesota Vikings defense.
Yeah, they played really well. We talked about that a little bit before the game. I thought with both Lamb and Pickens sort of man beaters, with Flores still blitzing at the highest rate in the league, even in recent weeks, it's been a consistent thing all year. For anyone who hasn't looked at those numbers recently, I was just looking at them this week. In the last 4 weeks, still the number one blitz rate just in that span, certainly for the entire year. He just calls the most blitzes, period, which obviously leaves you with fewer defenders in the back end whenever you do that. And if you have guys like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and have the ability to potentially win one-on-ones, and the way that Dak's been playing, I mean, I thought they would have answers. It was a good defensive game plan. It was a really good offensive game plan. Kevin O'Connell has been getting, or earlier in the year was getting some flack, the shines off of him, what have you. I mean, I think J.J. McCarthy's terrible, and he's put together 2 really good game plans the last 2 weeks to set him up to succeed. I think you got to feel really great about Kevin O'Connell again if you're a Viking fan. I don't know what that means for the future of J.J. McCarthy. They obviously are very committed to him, and I mean, I don't know if I would be. I hope they bring in somebody that can compete with him so that somebody could take over the job midseason next year if McCarthy does really struggle again. But a lot of what worked today, I felt like, was good scheme and good play calling and timing and when they went to different things.
Yeah, I got that impression from before we started, your extreme enjoyment of the designed second touchdown there for Jalen Naylor. No, I completely agree. It
was a great design play. I was annoyed because our guy Jordan Addison wasn't even on the field. There's a bunch formation with Jefferson, Hawkinson, and Naylor, and I'm pretty sure on the other side of the field there was a running back, like Aaron Jones split out, and they run Naylor into the to the front pylon, and he's wide open. And I'm like, why couldn't that just be Addison? It didn't need to be Jalen Naylor. Wasn't great.
That part was frustrating. Ben, we need to get out of here tonight and let the listeners get on with all of their activities as well. So we'll stop it here, but as we go out, I do want to say that Ben Johnson, again, looking absolutely fantastic. On the other end, Kevin Stefanski, maybe the shine is off a bit. And yet, when you look at the 3 picks, the 5 sacks that Sanders took today, it does have to be noted that on his best pass of the day, threading the needle to the corner of the end zone by 2 defenders, the ball bounced off of a receiver's chest and into the defensive back's body, who was very surprised to be jogging out of the end zone with the ball for a key interception.
He never looked at the quarterback or the ball, but the receiver handed it to him. He never looked back. He never even knew the ball was coming.
I mean, handing it is a bit of an exaggeration. That's what Travis Kelce tends to do with the passes that are thrown to him. In this case, the receiver doesn't just has a chest. It doesn't have hands to do the handing. Ball hits him in the chest. Interception. I think anyone who's listened to the show knows exactly which receiver didn't get his hands on that ball at all. This has been Stealing Bananas. We hope that you guys have dominated in Week 15, got all those teams through the fantasy quarterfinals, put up a big score in your best ball leagues, maybe have yourself into the top 10 or top 25 of the FFPC main event. Good luck on Monday night. We love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.